Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to Triple N Media. I am NIK NIKAM from Houston, Texas. This is a special report on executive orders from President Biden, 42 and counting, and their impacts on America. An executive political satire. Grab a cup of coffee and let's jump right into these executive orders and their impact on Americans, America, and its standing in the world. As you know, within 2 weeks of being in the office, President Biden has signed 42 executive orders, which is like 5 times more than what President Trump or Bill Clinton or Obama did in their office in months. Anyway, one of the striking executive orders was canceling the Keystone XL permit. It's going to cost 12,000 jobs. Now Canada, which had invested billions of Canadian dollars in this project, is demanding compensation. Maybe they didn't realize for each person who lost a job, there are 3 other family members who were dependent on that, and that means 48,000 votes will be lost. What are these people supposed to do? Well, I guess they could build solar panel. Says who? Says the clean air czar, John Kerry. He's the one who flies in a private jet, spewing tons of carbon monoxide. Maybe he's got a problem with vision. Executive order requiring mask wearing on federal property. Within hours of signing this mask wearing executive order, President Joe Biden was spotted in front of Lincoln Memorial along with his family members without a mask. And here are some of the officials behind him who are wearing the mask. So this goes back to the old concept of one rule for the House of the Lords and one rule for the House of the Commons. Hey, what's wrong with it? It exists everywhere else in the world. Why can't we do it? Come on, man, give me a break. Here's the next executive order, coordinating a government-wide COVID response. A government-wide COVID response. First of all, let's talk about COVID response. Before the election, during the debates, Joe Biden promised Americans that he had a plan where he can wipe out COVID in 3 to 4 months. And 2 days after being in the White House, what did he say? Nothing we can do to change the pandemic trajectory in the coming months. Oh, really? Nothing you can do to change the trajectory? That means everything that can be possibly done has been done by the Trump administration. That's what you're admitting to. And you said, oh, the Trump administration left us with nothing. We had to start from scratch. Which is right. I guess talk is cheap. Here's an executive order rejoining the Paris Agreement on climate change. Well, you didn't realize the Paris Agreement signature doesn't come free because it costs over $3 billion and it has to pass a congressional approval and it is not legally binding. If you drink and drive on the freeway and you could go to jail, but we are never going to put you in jail or force you to go to jail. So what is the end result? People are going to continue to pollute the earth, and we are just throwing $3 billion of taxpayers' money for nothing in return. I mean, they said the earth warming. You heard about the global warming, and here is the temperature chart for last 18 years and 7 months. It's been a pretty steady line here. I don't see the temperature going from like 70 degrees to 140 degrees. Do you? I mean, this is what it is. Yes, global warming and climate changes do have effect on your heart. They have effect on a whole host of conditions as it's listed here. But that doesn't mean you just throw money after something for which you have no accountability, and you can't force other countries who are polluting more than the United States and are not going to be held accountable for. Think about it. Executive order to promote racial equality. All right, I am all for racial equality. Okay, let's take these words separately. Racial. President Joe Biden fired Jerome Adams, an MD, an African American Surgeon General. Hey, what's wrong with that? We don't like the Surgeon General, we fire him. It is not racially motivated. Okay. Then let's talk about equality. Up to this time, I thought Surgeon General was a doctor. No, it doesn't have to be. A nurse can be the same as a doctor. I mean, that's what it is. You see, we have Susan Ortega. I have nothing against Susan Ortega. She is a great, accomplished hero or heroine. Anyway, she is a nurse. Now, you talk about equality, you're replacing an MD, doctor, with a nurse. Yes, she is an interim person. You mean to tell me out of close to 1 million doctors in the United States, you don't have another doctor to replace the fired Surgeon General? Executive order revising immigration. The moment the immigration was brought up, let me tell you, ladies and gentlemen, this caravan of 9,000 Hondurans who are dashing towards the southern border of the United States. This immigration policy is going to have a lot more rippling effects on the United States economy and the security at the southern border. Memorandum freezing approval of rules passed in the final days of Trump presidency. So what do? You freeze the rules? There are more pressing problems in this country than these rules passed in the last days of Trump presidency. Where is your COVID-19 plan? Where is your economic stimulus plan? I think those are more important. People are without jobs, people are without food, and I think they deserve much more attention than these things. Executive order undoing regulatory restrictions on federal agencies. It's kind of a double, triple negative. So it's kind of hard to understand what this executive order even means. Let's break it down. Executive order undoing. So there were regulatory restrictions on federal agencies. There must be hundreds of federal agencies. I have just listed a few. CMS, CDC, FDA, I mean, you name it, USDA, and all these agencies. I guess all these agencies, regulatory restrictions were lifted. So this is like telling the companies, okay, go, do whatever you want, more regulations. And, every time you add a regulation, it adds a cost of doing business. So you have to comply with these regulations. Because I worked as a doctor, and in the hospitals we have seen every time a Medicare comes up with a regulation, it's going to increase the cost of delivering that stipulation and cost of delivering healthcare. So more regulations simply means more cost of doing business and less productivity, and the outcomes are probably nothing different. It's just more bureaucratic red tape. There you go, gentlemen. You asked for it, you got it. Let's move on. Executive order incorporating undocumented immigrants into census. Oh man, give me a break. What about those who are in the country waiting for 10 to 15 years to get their green card? Why don't we include them also? For every person who is illegally entering into this country, it is costing $750 a day to house them in appropriate places, feed them, and provide them with all necessary supplies in life. And you know who is going to pay for that? You, the unemployed American who is locked down because of COVID, You are going to be paying for that. Are you ready for this? Okay, let's keep moving. Executive order banning discrimination on the basis of gender identity or sexual orientation. On the social media, I was having a heated debate with a doctor lady friend of mine, and she said that spells the death blow to women's competition. I said, you must be kidding. You say that because you're a woman? I said, no, Nick, you're not watching news. You're not watching what's happening in this country. Yes, I do. I'm in the media. I'm a talk show host. She said, well, that's stupid because you don't follow the right kind of news. What do you mean right kind of news? And she sent me this picture with this caption. So let me read this caption and try to explain to you what happened after that. Okay, here is 2016, Craig Telfer ranked 200th in the sports. All right? 17, 390th. 18th, transition to a female. Now, CC Telfer is the national champion. And CC is stunning and brave and opportunistic cheater. Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't even see that word cheater. But anyway, forget about the word cheater. She was a male by birth. She changed the gender, about which I have no objections. Now competing as a female, along with other female athletes, CC becomes the national champion. Now I could understand what my lady doctor friend was telling me. I called up my lady doctor friend and I said, I'm really sorry. I apologize for what I said. I see the point you're trying to make. Why, you're just a male chauvinistic pig. Man, come on, give me a break. I said I apologized. She said apologies accepted. Okay, let's move on. Memorandum revamping regulatory review. Man, I don't think I'll ever get this word. Regulatory review. Okay. Just as I said, this federal agency's regulatory constraints, every time you put in a new regulation, it increases the cost of doing business. It reduces the revenue bottom line. It reduces corporate earnings. It makes the stock market take a nosedive. Companies move jobs outside the country. More people going on food stamps. That's what they are hoping for. It's the beginning of a welfare state. This looks like a very well-planned, orchestrated program, disguised like a memorandum of revamping regulatory review, executive order. All right, let's keep moving. Executive order mandating ethics pledge for government appointees. Ethics pledge. Why would you hire someone if they didn't follow your company vision, mission, and ethics? Why do you need an executive order for that? Don't all companies already have a statement saying that if you don't work for the company's vision, mission, and your duties, I guess, no, Biden wants you to sign an agreement. I abide by Biden rules, and if at any time I deviate, I understand I'll be thrown under the bus. Look at what kind of executive orders are being signed here. Let's move on. This is a big one. Proclamation pulling funds from border wall. That was first day in his office. He stopped the funding for the border wall. In fact, the most recent word I heard from Department of Homeland Security is they are going to tear down the 500-mile wall that was already built. Man, this is what I call real progress. Here, we are tearing down the walls along the southern border of the United States while we are building 10-foot fence across the Capitol with barbed wires. It reminds me, all those 9,000 Hondurans who are trying to rush towards the southern border of America, I think they all should be sent to Washington, D.C. Come on, man, give me a break. Executive order pausing federal student loan payments. They are not even going to school. They are not even able to learn anything. Why not we just forgive their loans? Just passing the ball down the mountain is not going to help. And here's a man, look at this, he's 50 years old and he's still dragging on with his student loans. This is the only country perhaps where we have students who leave their college with $300,000 to $400,000 loan. This is insane because I know I have 3 kids and all 3 kids went to college and all of them finished master's level education. I'm not joking. Whereas when my kids were at UT for 5 years, 3 kids, a total of 16 years, it cost me well over $750,000. For that, I got a $40 jacket saying UT Longhorns. We need to revamp the educational system. Just, pausing student loan payment is like a drop in the bucket. Come on, man, give me a break. Memorandum reinstating deferred enforced departure for librarians. Of all the people who are unemployed, of all the people who are stuck inside the house, we have to focus on the librarians who are stuck in those old buildings with wooden furnitures, bookshelves, and 100-year-old books. I mean, look at the look on a librarian. You can't discharge them. I think I got an idea. All these congressmen or congresswomen who have been doing nothing for the past 2-4 years, sitting in the Congress, collecting taxpayers' money, should be sent to replace these librarians or serve as their assistants to these librarians. I mean, that's what they need to do because they are not doing anything sitting in Washington, in the Capitol. Now they are building a wall around them with a barbed fence. I think they need to go work in the library. Give a break to the librarians. What do you think? Memorandum strengthening deferred action for childhood arrival. The illegal immigrants, the people who have been here with no papers, no documents, get more preference, better treatment than the veterans in the streets of San Francisco. Homeless American citizens lying under the bridges in streets of San Francisco. Inmates don't get better treatment than these illegal immigrants. Even some nursing home folks are treated worse than the illegal immigrants. We got the priorities mixed up, ladies and gentlemen. Let's face it, we need to fix some of these things because the American citizens come first, the taxpayers come first, and the people who are part of this country needs to be taken care of first before illegal immigrants. Executive order expanding access to COVID-19 treatment. I am all for, doing everything possible under the sun to get rid of this pandemic. I have written a book on COVID-19 pandemic, which was published in December. It's available on Amazon.com. You can take a look at it. I have produced over 75 videos on COVID-19 pandemic education for the public. I mean, just to say we keep expanding, doing this, doing that, but we need results. We need actions. First, they said we are going to reach a target of 1 million COVID injections per day for the next 100 days. President Biden, I got news for you. In United States, just last Friday, they injected 1.6 million people with COVID vaccine. It is already existing in place. The Biden administration was saying that COVID distribution plan is a disarray. We are starting with 0, which was retracted later on. All these kinds of inflammatory statements by the press secretary and the president does not help to expand access to COVID treatment. Then President Biden upped the antenna to 1.5 million per day. And a few days later, he says, there is nothing we can do to change the trajectory of COVID-19 outcomes oh, there's a spell mistake here. In the coming months, I guess the reality is setting in. To me, it just sounds like just bait and switch. One statement before the election so he can get elected, and then once the election is over, now he's just spilling out the reality. There's nothing he can do because everything that needs to be done has been done by the previous administration. All right, let's move on to the next. Executive order promoting data-driven, science-driven, I'll just add it, response to COVID-19. Okay, this is a topic where I have serious discussion with my friends from time to time. Science-driven, data-driven. I have no problem with this. As I told you, I wrote a book on COVID-19. I have produced 75 videos on COVID-19 talking about science and how science determines our response to a COVID pandemic. But here are some points I really want to bring it to your attention. In February and in early March, there were no recommendations for widespread use of masks. I'm talking about the national advisors to the president. The national experts were not even wearing the mask. The national experts on infectious diseases opposed China travel ban. But did you know more than 2 million people entered the United States through New York airports in January and February of 2020? Now the same people are talking about data-driven, science-driven response to COVID-19? Really? Come on, man. Now you're telling us we need a double mask? Wait a minute. If you go and look at the COVID-19 waveform, the number of cases over a period of time, we had the first wave in March and April. We had the second wave, which started in October until the middle of January, and it's reached 300,000 cases per day. Now it is coming down to 150. We are on the downslope of the second massive wave of COVID-19. Now the experts are talking about data-driven, and that is you have to double mask. Wait a minute, which one do you believe? First, they never talked about mask. Then they started talking about mask. Now they're talking about double mask. If double mask is good on the downslope of the biggest COVID-19 second wave, why was this not advised back in January and February and March when the whole entire New York City was engulfed with COVID-19 and the Fifth Avenue in New York was void of human life? Why wasn't double mask recommended then? Don't you think when 100% of the New York population was vulnerable to COVID-19, that was the time to have a double mask than now? So this is what you call it, data-driven, science-driven? Do you really expect people to believe what you say? Come on, man, give me a break. Memorandum supporting states' use of National Guard in COVID-19 response. This has been one of the biggest disasters in the first week of January. I mean, I hate to say this, the picture is worth 1,000 words. If this is how they are going to treat the National Guards, throw them in the parking lots on their own, sleeping on concrete, and then you want the National Guards to come and help you with the COVID response. In fact, I wrote an article. I wrote an email to the mayor of Sugar Land, to mayor of Houston, talking about getting FEMA and National Guards to set up clinics in every community hall and doing these injections. But after seeing this picture, I have second doubts about the intentions. If this is how they are going to treat, they want the National Guards to be giving injections in the daytime, then sleeping in the parking lots? No. I think we got our priorities mixed up. These are American soldiers. These are people who protect our country, and this is the treatment you give to these people. Of all the 25,000 guards that protected the Capitol during the early weeks of January, 200 of them got COVID positive tests. That's why Texas wanted to pull all their National Guards out of Washington, D.C. I know it's Washington, D.C., but it's a medical joke. Medical people would understand when I say Washington, D.C. It is important to set up these shops, I told you, in every community hall, in every high school cafeteria, which are not being used right now, to give injections. But man, treat these people like they are supposed to be treated. If you're going to put a politician in a 5-star hotel, they need to be placed in a 5-star hotel. This is a disgrace to treat the National Guard the way they were treated in Washington, D.C. Executive Order Strengthening Public Health Supply Chain. Defense Production Act. We all know about Defense Production Act. Donald Trump used the Defense Production Act to produce 500,000 ventilators. The New York City demanded 16,000 ventilators. He gave them more ventilators than they actually needed. The New York City demanded 1,500-bed hospitals. 1,000-bed hospital was created in 3 to 4 days at Javits Center. And they brought the Navy ship with 1,500 beds. Both of them were never used. Yes, we need Defense Production Act, but we need to act where it is most important, and that is getting the vaccines to the locations and administering the vaccines to people. Let's keep moving. Executive Order establishing the COVID-19 Health Equity Task Force. How many more task force and regulatory bodies do you want? And now you have somebody else to tell you recommendations of resources, funding in light of disparities in COVID outcomes by race, ethnicity, and other factors. This is not an immediate problem. The race, ethnicity, it has been existing for decades. Look at the streets of San Francisco. There are people who are living in tents in the main streets of San Francisco. There are people who are sleeping under the bridges in San Francisco. If you are talking about changing economic disparity, this is where you need to start. This is not an immediate issue when it comes to COVID-19 health task force. Executive order supporting the reopening and continuing operation of schools. Oh man, if there is anything in this whole COVID pandemic that has taken a 180-degree turn, it is closing or reopening of the schools. If you, like me, ever followed the media, especially the liberal media, they were just spelling doom and gloom propaganda for the entire 6 to 8 months about how there's going to be increased incidence of a COVID infection, increased mortality among children if these schools were reopened. You don't believe me? Let me show you this one. Here, Nancy Bailey Education Research, which came up with 32 reasons why schools should not reopen in fall. And if they had 32 reasons in June, I think there should be a lot more reasons in October, November, December. In October, November, December, in January, when we had this mega second wave of COVID. So what changed? Well, like Ronald Reagan would say, we got a new president. That's what Nancy Pelosi said. You got a new president? But just now I told you the new president said there is nothing he can do to change the trajectory of the COVID-19 pandemics. So whatever happened to these 32 reasons why you cannot keep the schools open? Well, you see, this is like dial what you want society. When you're in power, you just dial whatever you want. You want to open the schools? Just say you're opening the schools. You want to shut the schools closed? Say, pull up 10 statistical studies from different parts of the country or outside, and they say, okay, we are keeping the schools shut. This is not based on science. This is not data-driven. This is politically motivated action. All right, executive order promoting workplace safety amid pandemic. If we have more regulations in any industry, it is focused on workplace, your ergonomics, your mental and physical well-being. We have OSHA regulations, we have CMS regulations, state regulations, insurance regulations, patient safety regulations. Look at a whole misery of a list of regulations. So we want more regulations amid pandemic. Man, first get them a job. Does the government ever have this concept of cost-benefit ratio? Maybe they didn't attend any science or mathematics school, I guess, or economics school for that matter. Executive order establishing a COVID-19 pandemic testing board. Okay, now I had it. Now. We are in end of January 2021. The pandemic started in January 2020. All right, I'm going to just walk you through here. Just stay with me. This is where the pandemic started in the first week of March here in the United States, beginning in New York City, even though a couple of cases were reported in Washington. Anyway, here we have the first wave where we had like 25,000 cases per day. Then the lockdown was lifted here in the end of May, in the end of June. Then we had like a little bump here second time. Then we have this huge second wave where the cases went from 25,000 per day to 300,000 cases per day. All right, we have just reached this peak somewhere in like January 12th, and now it is down to 150 or less thousand cases per day. So we are on a steep decline of this mega second wave, and we are still focusing on testing boards, more regulations, more bodies testing. I think the only thing that's going to save this country from a COVID pandemic usurping more population is getting the vaccinations for the most vulnerable people in the least period of time. I mean, that's what we need to be focusing our time, our resources, and our personnel. Yes, we do need to do tests, but this is a country which is very difficult to do contact tracing. Yes, people are going to isolate, but contact tracing involves 600,000 case workers. And these case workers all had to work from their laptops sitting at their homes. How would you like to give your personal information to a stranger calling you on the phone and telling that they represent a pandemic caseworker, health department, and they want to ask you some personal sensitive questions? Yes, it is being done in Germany. I know, I wrote a chapter on Germany COVID response. It is possible in certain countries where they have apps, but we need to see what works best for this country, and that is the vaccination, because that's the one thing that we can get with this sitting in the freezers. More than 50% of the vaccine that has been already shipped to the states have not been injected. Let's get an answer for that. Executive order expanding food assistance program. Again, we're going back to this damn welfare mentality. Oh, we'll give you food assistance. We'll give you food stamps. How about getting the $2,000 COVID relief fund, which they have been talking for the last 6 months? Man, these hardworking people who have been locked up in their shackles, they need work. They don't want your food stamps. How about some job assistance for those Keystone employees who lost their livelihood? Their whole family left in the dark. It looks like the administration has got their priorities mixed up. Executive order guaranteeing unemployment insurance for workers who refuse to work due to COVID-19. Well, this is like a blank check, blank invitation. If you don't like the boss, you tell them, you don't want to work because you're afraid of catching COVID-19 at the workplace. Really? I'm a healthcare worker. Can I take off saying that I'm being exposed to COVID-19 patients? As a matter of fact, healthcare workers are most vulnerable as they directly deal with the COVID-19 patients, and research has shown that healthcare workers are 3 times more likely to catch the COVID from their workplace than the general population. But there are healthcare workers, doctors, nurses, check-in assistants who are all facing these undiagnosed COVID patients, hacking, coughing, and sneezing. How about if they all take off? How about if they all apply for unemployment on the basis of saying, I've been exposed to COVID patients and I don't want to return to work. Executive order establishing benefit delivery systems. Benefit delivery systems. They haven't even approved the benefits. Where is the $2,000 benefit the people are supposed to get as a COVID relief fund? They haven't even gotten it. Now they want to establish delivery teams. Oh gosh. This is really a joke. And once you create all these administrative positions, they are like permanent jobs. The project may be gone, the urgency may be gone, but these people are not going anywhere. Executive order facilitating delivery of stimulus payments. Oh, is this the first time we are sending out the stimulus paychecks to people? I thought we had delivered paychecks within days to all those people who were unemployed. Again, more and more regulatory and administrative positions. All they do is they create more government jobs, and these people are going to be just latching on to the government paychecks for good. They haven't even agreed upon the stimulus check. How about getting that money to people's hands now? I mean today. I don't care if it's Sunday. Yes, they can get it on Sunday too if you make a decision. If you can sign an executive order on a Sunday, I'm sure they can get the checks in their bank accounts on a Sunday. Executive order to address COVID-19 economic relief. Biden's order directs all government departments and agencies to promptly identify actions they can take within existing authorities to address the current economic crisis resulting from the pandemic. While the current economic crisis has been going on for 8 to 10 months, this is not something that started on January 20, 2021. In other words, according to this executive order, basically what President Joe Biden is saying is the federal and the state governments have not been doing their jobs properly. They have not been supervising their jobs properly. They have not been accountable, and we need them to get their actions straight. You get it? You didn't? Let's move on. Executive order empowering federal workers and contractors. Empowering federal workers and contractors? Man, if you are a federal employee and you belong to a union, you have more power than the chief executive officer of that company. That means now, President Biden is revoking rules that made it easier to hire and fire civil servants in policy-making positions. Well, the bureaucracy continues, multiplies, and magnifies. Now the Department of Labor is recommending $15 an hour, and the rippling effects of that are astronomical. Okay, the minimum wage is somewhere around $7.25, or it could be variable in various states. Let's say the wages go up to $15 an hour. There are studies which show that more people are going to lose jobs, plus they are going to lose benefits. Less people will be forced to do the same amount of work. Automation may eliminate some of these jobs for good in this country. Hospitality industry will incur increased costs, increased taxes, and much more. Their bottom lines are going to go down, and the service is going to suffer. It's going to put quite many people into higher tax brackets. That means more taxes. Now, a minimum age employee will be making close to what a school teacher with a college degree is going to make. I guess, they are talking about equality. I mean, this is how they can create equality. That is, if they make everybody $15 an hour standard, then they get equality. Executive order reversing transgender military ban. I guess this is self-explanatory. Executive order promoting Buy American agenda. This must be borrowed from Trump administration. Buy American. Is this something new? I didn't know. What do you think? Come on, man, give me a break. Does it really mean by this? When they are increasing the wages, when they are increasing the taxes, when the profits are going down, and more corporate regulations, shutting down businesses and fossil fuel and other important elements, and say, buy American. What? How can American products be competitive? Come on, man, think about it. Someone else is doing the thinking. Why should I? I don't even know what I'm signing. What am I signing? And a few more orders here. Executive order calling for evaluation of Trump's housing policies. Okay. Executive order to end reliance on private prisons. More money, more taxes, more regulations. Executive order reaffirming commitment to tribal sovereignty, which is fine with me. Every ethnic group, which is the very fabric of this United States of America, must be treated equally. All lives matter. You don't need an executive order for that. It should be the right built into the Constitution of the United States. Denouncing anti-Asian discrimination and xenophobia. I'm all for denouncing not just anti-Asian, xenophobia, anything that discriminates whites, blacks, browns, Hispanics. Anybody who is discriminated should be held accountable, whether it is the public or the police. Any branch of the society that discriminates one against the other must be held accountable. Here are a few more executive order initiating plan to combat climate change. I guess this is part of that Paris Accord, which I already talked about, costs $3 billion, and most other countries are not going to follow because there is no binding obligation. Memorandum on scientific integrity. See, to me, every time I see these kind of statements, it tells me that integrity in the scientific field is questionable. Well, why not? If some of these ivory tower institutions are funded by China, like $50 million or more, you do question the integrity of the scientific community. And we don't need a memorandum for this. We need action. If some of these Ivy League universities are being funded by foreign governments, it should be investigated, they should be prosecuted, and they should be put on probation. Executive order re-establishing Presidential Council on Science and Technology. Now politics is infiltrating science and technology. How about that? You voted for that, and that's what you're getting. Why are you asking me the question? Executive order reinforcing Medicaid and Affordable Care Act. As far as Affordable Care Act is concerned, the pre-existing clause was one of the best things I liked. Employer mandate was bad. But since the implementation of the Affordable Care Act, the premiums have skyrocketed. An average family of four still has to pay $12,000 from their pocket before they can get an aspirin in a hospital setup. Do you understand what I'm trying to tell you? See, the Affordable Care Act is not doing what it's supposed to do. That is, reduce the premium, reduce the co-pays. I have insurance and all of my colleagues have insurance, and we talk about this every day. $6,000 deductible, $6,000 in insurance premiums. Your cost of getting any medical care until you spill out $12,000 is zero. And look at this one, Memorandum expanding access to reproductive health. What a clever way to disguise some of the words. You know what a reproductive health service means? Expanding access to Planned Parenthood, abortion clinics, Planned Parenthood. And here is the Catholic bishops slam Biden's grievous executive order funding overseas abortion providers. So, ladies and gentlemen, your tax dollars are going to fund foreign doctors or whoever they are providing abortions in foreign countries. Is that what you voted for? Think about it. Proclamation ending ban on US entry from majority Muslim countries. I guess time will tell us as what its effects would be. Anyway, in conclusion, Biden has signed 42 executive actions, much more than the past 3 presidents put together in the first 2 weeks. Well, you get what you ask for. Ladies and gentlemen, before I conclude, I would like you to take a look at my COVID-19 pandemic, an international guide on how to deal with pandemic. Maybe I would like to send a copy of this to all those executives who are dealing with this pandemic and having questions about pandemic. You have been watching a Triple N Media. Executive orders from President Biden, 42 and counting, an executive political satire. I am Dr. NIK NIKAM, and please do subscribe to our channel, and we will see you next time.